Alright, Fight Camp. In this video, I want to go a little more in depth into what our Philly Shell program is actually about. And the reason is because we don't just say, okay, well, we're going to put this out because the people want it. When we put something out, it's because the people need it. It's because our base needs it. It is a need for it, and not just something that is based on popularity or what is the flavor of the month. So everything that we do, every program, even every video like this, has a premise. Even when I don't take notes, it has a premise. I build up to what I tell you what I'm going to say or what my goal is. And then in the end, I hope to have achieved that goal before I say, Fight Camp, save Carmen, train hard, train smart. I'll see you in the next video. So in this video, I want to explain what our Philly Shell program is, why it's important, and why, if you want to really learn a Philly Shell, why you need the program. All right. Now, here, before I talk about that, I'm going to step on some toes. And it's because I can't avoid it. If I could avoid it, I would, but I can't. The Philly Shell, most people don't know, is an underground style. It is an underground style. So what do I mean by that? Most of you know about it now because of the popularity of Floyd Mayweather and the need for people to stay relevant. And as people need to stay relevant, then they have to look around for what is popular in order to keep feeding the public what they think the public wants. But prior to Floyd Mayweather, actually the Philly Shell was underground. Why? Because it generally was not, and still really is not, a style in its complexity, in its advanced stages, all right, is not a style that is taught on top of the surface when you walk into the gym. And the reason is because the Philly Shell, and it wasn't called the Philly Shell. Actually, it was just called boxing, the art of really gym warfare, gym warriors who were not professionals, who sometimes didn't even have an amateur fight, all right, but just loved to spar. It was their method of boxing. It was their method for dealing with things, little tricks, how to breathe, how to back into the ropes, how to hold your hands, how to stall for time, how to make someone think you were going to punch when you weren't going to punch. All of these different things were part of this style that people came to know as the Philly Shell. Now, it was underground. And it was underground because most of the people who did that kind of boxing were not wanted in the gyms. Most of the people who boxed like that were not necessarily wanted in the gyms because most of them went to prison, went to jail, they weren't on the best side of the law. And the history of the Philly Shell or that style of boxing actually shows that these people were extremely rambunctious. So they would walk into the gym and they would say, okay, I'll spar, I'll beat anybody in here. And they would walk in and then they would spar. And they would beat up on some professionals. They would beat on some fighters who later became great and were in the Hall of Fame. But the Philly Shell, that style, that slick style, and I'm not just talking about when you parry the jab and you cover from the hook. I mean putting your foot out in such a way, or may trip someone when you move or when they move, or may fake a certain way or feint a certain way and pivot out or snatch the elbow and push them into the ropes and through the ropes. These kind of tricks were underground. Now, the part that became above ground actually is this. And this is where I start to tell you some truth that might be painful to some people. The above ground part of the Philly Shell that most of you are being fed actually is that part that you see Floyd Mayweather do, that you've seen him do for the last 20 years. The bottom line is most people who actually really know the Philly Shell and actually mastered the Philly Shell are in their late 60s perhaps. In their late 60s. Most of the people who learn from them at their feet are close to my age, in their 50s. In their 50s, if they learned it at all. Okay? And why? Because now gyms, for the most part, have been cleaned up. They've been cleaned up. In order to pay the rents, there's certain kinds of people. You need the Wall Street guys. You need the models who think losing weight can be done easily by hitting the bag. So now you rarely have these gyms you rarely have these gyms today that welcome in that seedy side, or that considered seedy side of boxing, where the gym warrior feels like he's comforted, like he can be welcomed into the gym to get some quality sparring before he goes on to his regular job or whatever it is that he does for the rest of the day or in his life to make money. Now, because these gyms have been cleaned up in order to pay the rent, and that seedy side or that underground side is rarely seen today, then what is happening today is the Philly shell that Floyd Mayweather has made popular, and not everything he does. The basics, the most basics, parrying the jab, covering from here, standing like this, that kind of thing, the pull hook, the pull right hand, the check hook, the shoulder roll, these kind of things are merely things that are being repackaged and given out to the public. So what do I mean by that? And then how can I prove it? And as soon as I do that, I will tell you what our program actually entails and what you can get from our program. Let's look at it like this. In order to be on YouTube, in order to be on Facebook, if you are talking about boxing or MMA or karate or wrestling, you have to remain relevant. Now, how do you remain relevant? Well, you remain relevant by keeping your pulse on the people and knowing what the people want. So this is what ended up happening. And 99% of people who talk about the Philly shell have done this. 99%. All right? They figure out what is being talked about. Well, you are talking about the Philly shell. And particularly urban youth are talking about the Philly shell. Mostly blacks, young black men, were talking about the Philly shell. Then you have the non-blacks who won't venture down into some of the tougher areas, or won't contact some of the black people who may know the Philly shell a little better than most. So what happens is they need their own. So where they had Elvis Presley, kind of catered to those people, those non-blacks who didn't want to listen to R&B, they had their Elvis Presley. At the same time, you have non-blacks who say, I can fill that niche for non-black viewers or non-black boxing enthusiasts by me saying I am the expert in the Philly shell. But this is ultimately what ended up happening. These so-called experts actually looked at what you, the general public, wanted to know. They look at the same films, they look at the same fights of, say, perhaps Floyd Mayweather, and decided to break it down a little better than you broke it down, or a little better than they thought you could break it down, and then they actually fed you back the same information you would have gotten had you watched a Floyd Mayweather fight maybe 2 times and took your time to pick it apart themselves. In other words, they took raw materials, made it into aluminum foil, and sold it back to you at exorbitant prices, right? And essentially gave you the same information you could have gotten yourself by simply just watching the same fights that they watched and took apart. That's what 99% of people who are talking about the Philly shell are doing right now as I speak. They simply take the same information you have, they break it down slightly better and hand it back to you under the guise of being experts. Some of the ways to tell when people really know is I'll throw these examples at you. About 5 years ago, I posted a video saying the secret to the shoulder roll was not in rolling the shoulder, but was actually the fact that the front foot of the person doing the shoulder roll was 24 to 18 inches in front of their head. It was the wide stance. It was the stance that made the shoulder roll so effective. Why? Because people generally look at your front foot and assume that that's where your head is. Because they assume that's where your head is, they throw a punch at your head, not realizing that your front foot is setting a false barrier. And this was taught to me, actually, by a master of the Philly shell who happened to be a gym warrior in the Times Square gym in New York City, which now is closed down. He actually went back to the ropes and told me, I was 18 at the time, he said, son, look at this. Get in the ring, put on your gloves, I want you to come in the ring, and I want you to come after me. Come to me. I realized that my right hand was falling short. Now, why was my right hand falling short? I didn't know why, but he told me. He said, you see my front foot? I said, yes. He said, you're imagining that that is my barrier. When the fact of the matter is, all you have to do is go beyond the front foot to hit me. Now, I said that 5 years ago. Now, when I said the secret to the Philly shell shoulder roll was not the roll, but was the placement of the front foot in front of the head, giving the illusion that the head was where the front foot was. When I said that, there were people who said, oh, no, that's not right. No, it's the shoulder roll. It's the roll. It's the shoulder. But guess what? Somehow, 5 years later, there was a man who had a great deal more subscribers. He had an actual, he copied what I did. I had a stick. And me and Nasiba Hill were in this video. I had a stick. I went and I got the stick. Those of you who have been with us for 5 or 6 years, then you know that I did it. I went and I got a stick and I put it here next to my head. I got into the typical Philly show position that you generally see Floyd Mayweather in, that wide, very wide stance, almost like a side karate horse stance. And I showed where my foot was actually, my front foot was actually 18 to 24 inches beyond the head, beyond my head, making it almost a shoo-in that anyone who threw a right hand was going to be short anyway, whether I moved my shoulder or not. Why? Because they imagined that my foot was where, that my head was where my front foot was. And I took a stick and showed that here's my head, here's where my foot is. 5 years later, a gentleman who was known to say that the shoulder roll was simply just rolling the shoulder. 5 years later, he takes a beautiful graphic and he has a line straight down here, right? Doesn't use a stick. He has a beautiful graphics. He knows about all the technology. So he has a beautiful gold line going right down by the head, showing again where what I had showed 5 years before, that the secret to the shoulder roll is not the shoulder itself, but it is the placement of the foot in front of the head, 18 to 24 inches. Okay? But he shows it 5 years later. There is another video, and those of you who know about this video, you can come into this forum and say that you saw it, where I talked about a street shoulder roll. I said that if someone is right up on you and they keep their balance, they keep their head above their groin and keep their balance and don't lean, that it's very difficult for you to roll from the right hand. Why? Because they're not committing to it. They're not leaning in, right? So what did I do? I said that you have to lift your elbow. You have to lift your elbow to knock off the right hand, to cover from the right hand. 5 years later, there's a guy from LA, Los Angeles, California. What does he do? He posts a video. Here's a guy, if you look at all his videos before, he said, you roll like this, you roll like this, you roll like that. 5 years after I say, sometimes you will have to lift your elbow if the gentleman in front of you, if the opponent in front of you does not compromise his balance by leaning in, right? When I said that, I was crazy. Oh, well, why are you going to lift your shoulder? You're susceptible to a body shot. 5 years later, this guy from LA says, well, you know what? Floyd Mayweather does lift his shoulder like that. Sometimes you will have to lift your shoulder like that. I didn't get it from Floyd Mayweather. I got it from the masters of the original Philly shell, the art of gym warfare, who actually taught me as a teenager in a Times Square gym in New York City. Okay? So, the bottom line is this, is that when you see our program, and when you get our program, what you are getting is actually the art of gym warfare. You are not getting something that I saw on YouTube, just like you, and regurgitated back out to you as though I was some kind of expert. This is why you see certain blocks. You will see certain blocks that are generally not used in the gym. You will see things such as a crush and roll. A crush and roll, which is from the original art of gym warfare. You will see certain elbow deflections. You will see certain forearm deflections. You will see some of these techniques that only the top echelon fighters use, and you will see them. Why? Because the art of gym warfare is underground. And there are very few people who have been underground, who have gone into those gyms back in the 70s and has actually learned at the feet of some of these masters. This is why when you look at many things that you see me do from the Philly Shell, even if it's on YouTube and I'm just moving around and doing some light sparring, it's totally different than what you generally see. So in this program, what do you get? You will get the history of the Philly Shell. What is the history of the name? Where did it come from? Who did it? Why is it called the Philly Shell? Who called it the Philly Shell? You will hear about Russell Peltz. You will hear about the Blue Horizon. You will hear about the Philadelphia Forum. You will know the history of the Philly Shell right from the mouths of the people who used the term first. Okay? You will learn about the 5 positions. The 5 positions. There are 5 positions in the Philly Shell. Now, I know right now, as I speak, someone who has a channel is going to look and say, oh, these 5 positions, and frantically try to find what these 5 positions are. You did not hear anything about 5 positions in the Philly Shell until Safe Carmen told you that there are 5 positions in the Philly Shell. Prior to me saying it, people just assumed the only position that there was just that side horse position, just like this. That's it. That's what they thought. You will learn those 5 positions, but you will also learn the best defenses. The best defenses. All right? So some of them may have 5, some punches may have 5 good defenses for them, but you will learn the best defenses of 12 punches. The best defenses for 12 punches, and you will learn them right after the positions. You will learn them. Then you will get the jab series. Then you will get the cross series, then the hook series, then the uppercut series, and then I show you how to build from a core, how to build drills, so you can learn to build your own drills, and I will show you how that's done in an introduction to building core drills. But the main thing you get from this program, and if it sounds like I'm enthusiastic about it, it's because I am enthusiastic about it. Because there is a thin line between kind of tooting my own horn and then trying to not hurt people's feelings. The fact of the matter is we are on top when it comes down to pure, old school boxing, and we're on top for a reason. It's because I happen to be one of the last of the generations that actually was taught by the masters of the styles that are so popular today, the Philly Shell and the Peekaboo. So what things are you going to get with this program? You don't just get the positions where I tell you, okay, get in this position, and then parry like this and cover like that. No, you get dozens of focus mitt drills. Dozens of focus mitt drills, okay? Focus mitt drills that are designed to install the habits you need, or your student needs, your client needs, your fighter needs to be good at the Philly Shell. Okay, you get dozens of focus mitt drills. But not only dozens of focus mitt drills, you get dozens I said, more than 12. Okay, you get dozens, 24 and more drills where you use the gloves. Now this gets your client and your student and you used to the pressure of feeling the pressure of these punches. All right. So you get partner drills where you go back and forth with your partner. You have a partner. You go back and forth. You're teaching each other the Philly Shell. So what are you getting? You are getting the real history of the Philly Shell. The real history. You will hear about Russell Peltz. Now I'm sure you'll look up Russell Peltz. Feel free to do so. But where did you hear the name Russell Peltz before right here? You will learn about Russell Peltz. You will learn about the Blue Horizon. You will learn about the Philadelphia Forum. You will learn about the fighters, the 3 fighters who were part of the middleweight division who used the Philly Shell. All 3 were contenders at the same exact time during the 70s. You will learn about those particular fighters. All right? You will learn the 5 positions, 4 of which people never even talked about, right? You will learn the defenses of the 12 punches, the best defenses from the Philly Shell against the 12 major punches in boxing. And then we will go on to the jab series, the cross series, the hook series, the uppercut series. And every single one of these series comes with focus mitt drills and glove drills. So if you have a son and you want to teach him the Philly shell, this particular program, you can look at this particular program and you can teach your son the Philly shell, the real Philly shell. If you want to learn it with a friend, you can take this and you and your friend can use these particular drills, the focus mitt drills and the glove drills and the interactive drills and the partner drills, and both of you can learn a Philly shell at the same time. You want to impart, you want to take the Philly shell and take it and start to train it in your gym? Well, this is the program where you can take it and you can implement this and go ahead and put it into your gym. Now, you can teach it in your gym and it will be legitimate. Anybody who walks in and sees how you're teaching will say, that is the Philly shell. Do you have a martial arts school and you want to teach the Philly shell? This particular program will allow you to take this particular program and start that program, and now you can offer karate, MMA, and the Philly shell boxing, because it is coming straight from one of the last generations of someone who was taught by the masters of the Philly shell. Every single thing we do, I put my personal reputation on the line. My personal reputation on the line, because I know, for several reasons that I won't go into, that if Safe Carmen screws up one time, it will be said that I was a fraud all the time for all 6 years. I am not allowed to screw up. I have to be right, and I have been right for 6 years. I have been right. Whether it was a fight I picked or whether it was it's something I said that later became true that people thought I was crazy for saying when I first said it, I have been right for 6 years. Now, some of you people may say, well, I don't particularly like the guy's personality. You can hate my personality, but when it comes down to your brain cells in your life, you sure as hell better listen, okay? So this Philly shell program is for those people who really want to master the original Philly shell and do not want to be spoon-fed something that you have already known yourself. Do not want to have something that is repackaged by people who sit up just like you and watch YouTube, break it down a little better than you, and then hand it right back to you, pre-packaged with a beautiful bow on it, as though they are experts and knew it all the while. When the fact of the matter is, the Philly shell is underground, will always be underground, because those people who know it best are not talking. Those people who know it best are not speaking. Those people who know it best are not teaching. So generally what you are getting is a repackaged Floyd Mayweather, block this way, block that way, and not even an advanced Floyd Mayweather. What you are getting is the basic Floyd Mayweather, the same thing that you people have been looking at for 6 years, or 6 years, or 10 years, or 20 years. It's the same thing. 99% of the people who call themselves experts on YouTube are doing the same thing and throwing it right back at you. Look at the amount of people who say, how do you parry, how do you deal with a jab and a hook? And the first thing they say is this way, that way. You didn't know that yourself? They've repackaged it, they've shined it up, they spit shined it, they put a little bow on it and handed it back to you. And you say these people are experts. No, the Philly shell is underground, and it has always been underground. When you get our Philly shell Phase 1 program, the original Philly shell, you start to begin what the real Philly shell looks like. And then Phase 2 bites off. Phase 2 continues where Phase 1 left off. Phase 3 continues where Phase 2 left off. 4 and then 5 is for instructors, and I would have to know that these people are instructors and have a gym before I release Phase 5. Phase 2 is now being worked on. So Phase 1, again, you get the history of the Philly shell. Who is Russell Peltz? Where was the Blue Horizon? The Philadelphia Forum. Who were the 3 fighters who actually were from the Philadelphia gyms and were in part of middleweight contenders at the same exact time, and all 3 of them used the Philly shell? What are the 5 stances? What are the best defense of these 12 punches? How now do you take that and install it? How do you teach someone who has no idea what the Philly shell is? How do you teach them? Where do you start? What things are you looking for? How do you get them to jab? How do you get them to block? How do you get them to cover? How do you get them to do all these things? If you want to teach your son, if you want to teach your daughter Philly shell, this is the program. If you want to take the Philly shell now and implement it into your gym, then this is the program. If you want to take a fighter and teach him the Philly shell because you think another style is not good for him and the Philly shell is best for him, this is the program. If you have a martial arts school and you don't know how to take and you want to offer the Philly shell to make more money, or you want to offer the Philly shell in your school because you just want to have it to complement your Filipino martial arts or your silat or something like that. This is the program. And once you get this program, I am now open to any question you have that will help you implement what the contents of the program. All right. So there is a difference. There is a difference between this program and a lot of other things that have been regurgitated by 99% of the people on YouTube and on other social media. 99% of them have just taken the same exact news, the same exact techniques that you've been looking at on YouTube, have regurgitated out to you, put a pretty bow on it, and has said, listen, here I am, this the expert. I'm an expert. When the fact of the matter is, they simply broke it down a little better than you could have had you just taken your time and broke down what Floyd Mayweather did. The Philly shell is far more complex than what only Floyd Mayweather does. It is far more complex, and very few people know it. So, the UMA Fight Camp original Philly shell program, phase 1. Again, I could be a little more modest, but the fact of the matter is, if I was a little more modest than what I am about the program and about how good the program is and about what the program would do for you, if I actually was a little more modest than that, I would be lying. The fact of the matter is, it is the product of someone who was taught by the masters and not someone who sits behind a laptop or a computer trying to figure out what I can sell you back that you actually knew yourself. UMA Fight Camp, Save Carmen. Train hard, train smart. See you next video.